This is NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock, who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place to tune in. Tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Knicks.
Knicks family, what's poppin'? It's your boy, ladies and gentlemen. What's poppin' with you? How are you feeling, Tony? What's good, brother? How you feeling?
What's good, Sim? Shout out to the chat.
No doubt, man. You know, it's been in motion, always in motion, both of us in motion a lot. But we here. And we're gonna talk about the Knicks and the possibility of signing Malik Beasley. I keep wanting to say Michael Beasley, but Malik Beasley. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 reasons why the Knicks and Beasley might be a perfect match. It's possible. Tony, just what are your first thoughts on the possibility of the Knicks signing Beasley? Malik Beasley, that is. Given everything that's going down with, the federal investigation, and he's been cleared of those charges.
Yeah, but the damage has been done. The damage has been done. Can we reap the benefits of the damage, right? The first thing I thought about, if he did come here, it reminds me of, a year ago when we grabbed Campaign, when Payne was a pain in our ass, in the playoffs. And that's what Beasley was in that first round with Detroit. You know what I mean? Like, he had some shining moments.
Yeah.
And we could definitely use a guy of his caliber with his skill set.
Yeah, no doubt. You know what it reminds me of, even though it's not as bad. Obviously, it's not as bad, right? But it would remind me of Latrell Sprewell, right? Way back in the day, Sprewell choked out the coach, signed with the New York Knicks, and reclaimed his career with the Knicks. You know what I mean? Is it the same? It's not the same. Beasley didn't choke out his coach. He was investigated for gambling charges, allegedly is suffering financially or was suffering financially, or whatever it is. I don't want to get into a man's pockets like that. But I think if he is struggling financially, well, we'll get into all of that as we start talking about these 6 reasons. I don't know. What do you want to start with? Do you want to start with 6 reasons the Knicks should sign Beasley, or 3 reasons the Knicks should sign Beasley, or 3 reasons that Beasley should sign with the Knicks? Which one do you want to start with? Because this makes up 6 reasons that they could be a perfect match.
Let's go one for one. Let's start with what he could bring to the Knicks, or why the Knicks
bring to the Knicks. Okay. All right. So let's start with why the Knicks would want Malik Beasley. Okay. So #1 for the Knicks, elite shooting. Right. He replaces what Dante DiVincenzo brought, and you said it earlier, what Dante DiVincenzo brought to this basketball team. And I think last year we sorely missed what DiVincenzo brought. That quick release, that quick shooter, a little bit of an edge to him as well, which Malik Beasley has both of those. Beasley last season shot 41% from the 3-point line.
On 9 attempts.
On 9 attempts per game. Right? He averaged 16.3 points per game. Now the Knicks ranked 27th in 3-point attempts last season. Despite being 8th in percentage, they ranked 27th in 3-point attempts. That's not going to happen this year. I can guarantee you that. The Knicks are not going to rank 27th in 3-point attempts. They're going to be they're going to be shooting the three, and he falls in line with that philosophy. You know what I mean? So elite 3-point shooting, that's one of the reasons that the New York Knicks should sign Malik Beasley. You know what I mean? And I think one of the reasons that Leon Rose and company have began to do some background, some research on Malik Beasley and the entire investigation. You know, I don't know. What do you think about his shooting and how that would impact the Knicks?
I mean, this is he will bring what we needed and wanted from Shamit last year, right? Now, granted, I understand Shamit went through the shoulder injury and working his way back and in and out of the rotation and limited opportunity.
Mhm.
But what we was expecting from Shamit last year, you know what I mean, as somewhat of a replacement for DiVincenzo, you know what I mean? We seen what this guy Beasley can do,
Yeah.
and he's done it not just last year against us, but from a plethora of teams in the playoffs and not. So yeah, elite skill set. He doesn't give you much more than the 3-point shooting, but the 3-point shooting he gives you is high value and at a higher percentage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, I think you mentioned it earlier. He gives another, especially if he was in the starting lineup, not saying he would be, but if he was in the starting lineup, you have another 3-point shooter in that starting lineup so that you could capitalize on pick and roll from Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, right? You can, I mean, the floor is now, you talk about playing 5 out, right? The floor is wide open for players like Malik Beasley to be able to penetrate because he can penetrate as well. Jalen Brunson to be able to penetrate, you know, for cutters like OG and what's his name to slash to the basket.
Bridges.
Mikal Bridges to slash to the basket. You know what I mean? That's a wide open floor with guys who, and we talk about pushing the pace a little bit. He adds a player in that lineup if he were to start. We'll talk about that later on, you know, what the rotations would look like if Malik Beasley were on this basketball team. But if he were to start, he adds someone into that lineup that can push the pace, that can get the ball up the floor. And you need 3-point shooters to push the pace in that way, in my opinion.
Outlets.
You know what I mean? Outlets. Right? Because when you push the pace, when you want to push the pace, you got to have 3-point shooters that can spread the floor out so you can have a big man or a guard, whoever, also fly up the center of the court. You know what I mean? That allows you to be able to run effective fast break, effective transitions. You know what I mean? You know, the Knicks need a guy like Malik Beasley, and he's got a little bit of an edge to him. You know, a little bit of an edge. Now let's talk about what would be number one for Malik Beasley.
Yep.
Beasley to play for a championship contender. Now, there may be several championship contenders battling for his services, right? But he'd get a chance to play for a championship contender in the New York Knicks. I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, pardon me to cut you off, but he's also seen the atmosphere of the New York Knicks team as a contender, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He like I said, we seen what he did against us, but he's seen with the energy of the New York Knicks, the energy of the fan base in that first round series with him as an opponent in Detroit. So he knows what it is from an outside, but a first-hand look of what it is to be on this type of team. My bad.
Nah. I mean, that's, you know, he played against the Knicks in the first round of the playoffs, so he gets it. You know what I mean? He knows exactly what it is. And now, you know, things might be a little bit different because Mike Brown is here. right? But the style of play that Mike Brown is going to bring to this team may benefit Malik Beasley like tremendously. You know, if we're going to play that up-tempo style of basketball, Malik Beasley might, you know, I have no doubt in my mind that he probably still averaged 16 points per game. If you're playing that style of basketball, because you're talking more shot attempts for the players that's on the basketball team, more possessions. You know what I mean?
How would you compare him to a guy like Malik Monk and Malik Monk's development under Mike Brown in Sacramento?
I guess Beasley would need less development. Right? He's 28. You know, I think Monk came to Mike Brown at an earlier age, maybe. Right. So I think Beasley would need less development, you know, more. He's been around the league. He's been in the league for a while. He's been around the league. So I think he would be able to adjust to anything that Mike Brown is asking of him. You know, so you know, I don't know.
I only asked that because I think Malik Monk was more Malik Beasley when he was first getting to Sacramento. Mm-hmm. And granted, Mike Brown had some years with him, you know what I mean, with them two together. But Malik Monk's game developed over that time. He became more of a playmaker. You know what I mean? He became more than just a volume 3-point shooter. That's the only reason I asked. Do you think we could see? Because I do think, as great as I think Malik Beasley is in that specific category, elite 3-point shooter. I don't know what else he brings to the game. So I'm wondering, can we see an expansion in his game under Mike Brown or not?
I don't know. I think his stripes have fully grown. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think he is what he is right now in the league. So I don't see him being a facilitator really for this team. You know, just another threat that's out there on the floor. And now, can he bring the ball up? I think, yeah, he could bring the ball up and initiate the offense. I don't know if he'd be a natural facilitator, but I think he could initiate the offense. You know what I mean? Which would allow Jalen Brunson to be off the ball. You know, so
that helps.
Yeah, that helps. It helps. You know what I mean? It definitely helps. I mean, but a chance for him to play for a championship contender. Now he might look and say, well, the Pistons are on the verge of being a championship contender too. He might feel that way, right? There's going to be competition from championship contenders from the Cleveland Cavaliers. There's probably going to be competition maybe from OKC, who are the defending world champions. You know what I mean? So they're going, I think, though, there's an opportunity with the Knicks that there may not be for anybody else. And that's going to come later on as we discuss the reasons for both. I think there's opportunities with New York that maybe he's not going to get anyplace else. You know what I mean? The opportunity, you know, just an opportunity to shine. So let's go to the next one for Malik Beasley. Right? He's going to have that opportunity to shine as a specialist with the Knicks. Right? Because he's going to have a clear-cut role, especially if he was in that starting lineup, a clear-cut role, right? Very similar to what Dante DiVincenzo was with the Julius Randle Knicks. You know, he's going to be an energy guy. He's going to be a three-point specialist. You know, he's going to have a little bit of an edge to him, which I desperately want this team to have. We need some guys that got some edge. He's got some edge to him. He'll be able to penetrate a little bit to the basket. He can get up and down the floor. You know, he can push the pace a little bit. Very similar to Dante DiVincenzo. And the Knicks missed that sorely last year. You know what I mean? So he'll have an opportunity to shine, and an opportunity to shine in New York. Right now, the Knicks would only be able to sign him to a veterans minimum. So he'd be betting on himself, right? He'd be he'd be betting on himself. You know what I mean? Excuse the pun. I don't want to say pun not intended. I'm just going to say excuse the pun, right? But he'd be betting on himself that he'd play a year in New York, make his mark on a championship contender. Maybe the Knicks make it to the NBA Finals. Maybe they win the NBA Finals. He'd have a very, very good chance, I believe, in being the starter on this basketball team, right? Because there's a spot there next to Jalen Brunson that's available. And there's a question as to who's going to be in that spot. Would it be Beasley? Would it be Clarkson? Would it be Deuce? Would it be Josh Hart? Or would Mitchell Robinson start? Right? But there's a chance for him to be starting shooting guard on this basketball team in Madison Square Garden, right?
Chance for him to earn it.
A chance for him to earn it. Exactly. It's a chance for him to earn it. So, that's an opportunity some players won't want to pass up. But now, there's so many questions about it, though. Based on the investigation, would he want things to be a little bit low profile for him?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? You know what? Let me get a little bit out of the spotlight. Let me just fade away, get out the spotlight. What do you think?
New York would not do that for him at
It
all.
would do that for him,
New
right?
York, even if it's not even like high per se, if you're just not trying to answer the questions about the situation, New York is not the place. You hear me? Because that's going to be the first question they ask you, not as an implication, but how did it affect you? You know what I mean? And those, if you don't want to answer those questions and you want to just put it behind you, you're not going to be able to do that here. But you might want to tell your story. You might want to tell how it affects you.
That's true.
If that's the case, the spotlight will be on you here. You know what I mean? You will be able to take control of the narrative, and spin it the way you want. You're gonna have to address the other things that have come out with the financial situations, but it gives you an opportunity to address all of that. And then if you want to put it behind you, you can.
Right.
Can't hide from it though. Not here.
Not in New York. Not in New York. Let me get to a comment. Jabroni Z said he's not coming for a veteran minimum, and the Knicks don't involve themselves with players surrounded by drama. The Knicks are one of the teams that have done their research on Malik Beasley. Right? That's the reason why this question is coming about. And this is reported by Ian Begley, not just anybody. Ian Begley is, the most trusted source for the Knicks when it comes to insiders, in my opinion. Right? And he's reporting that the Knicks have done their background investigation on Malik Beasley, which means they have some interest in signing Malik Beasley. Now, you said he's not coming for the veterans minimum. You could be right. But there also could be reasons for him to come to the Knicks for the veterans minimum. We're going to get to that, Jabroni. Let's talk about the number 2 reason for the New York Knicks. All right, for the Knicks, you get an affordable, high-impact talent. Right? You talk about the Knicks offseason and players that they've added. If you can add Malik Beasley to this roster, I mean, the the offensive firepower that you have on his basketball team will be out of this world. You know what I mean? Now, what happens after this year? I don't know. I'd be worried about what happens this year. But to add a Malik Beasley at the veterans minimum, $3.7 million, which some of that would be subsidized by the league, right? So essentially the Knicks would be paying 1 point something million dollars or whatever for Malik Beasley. That's not something you can pass up on. Leon Rose, Worldwide West, they'd have to go into a meeting with Beasley and his agent with some good stuff and how they're going to help Malik Beasley to recover and raise his profile.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So that his next contract can be
His best contract.
His best contract, hopefully, can be lucrative. But I do feel like there's a spot for him to do it with the Knicks. And as we get through these six, we're gonna sum up why it might be a perfect match and why the Knicks may be the best team for him to sign with to recover from this entire situation. You know what I mean? Anything else you want to add there, Tony?
I mean, just what you're saying, the affordable, high impact talent for the price that you're getting him at. That's one of the arguments. Even though I was high on Jordan Clarkson, under the contract he was under, there was times where I talked about trading for Jordan Clarkson. When you could get a Jordan Clarkson off the buyout at that value, it's the same argument here. You know what I mean? And this is not me putting them, because you could argue that Beasley, both of them at the same money, you might pick Beasley. You know what I mean? If the timing was the same, but it's the same argument. If you could get Malik Beasley for the vet minimum, knowing this guy was about to sign 3 for 42, you know what I mean? And that wasn't an overpay or a reach to retain him.
Right.
You can't turn that down. You know what I mean? You gotta inquire. You gotta see if it's possible at the very least.
At the very least. Gotta see. And number 3 for the Knicks, ladies and gentlemen. You're adding depth and flexibility. Right? I mean, the Knicks last year had very little depth. If you add Malik Beasley, the Knicks have a mountain of depth on this basketball team, especially from that wing, that guard/wing spot on this roster. There'd be so many tools for Mike Brown to use. Tom Thibodeau is probably writing letters to Leon Rose right now, like you
didn't give me this.
Florin, Phil. You didn't give me this. Right. You know what I'm saying? But Mike Brown to have a wealth of players to utilize and we talk about the last year the offense for the last however many years was very predictable. Now you have the tools to make this offense so unpredictable. You know what I'm saying? And the Knicks would be able to score from so many different areas on the floor, so many different ways. You can use so many different lineups. You can go small, you can go big, you can have a mixture of the two. You can play fast, you can play slow, you can shoot threes, you can penetrate to the basket. Like so many things that this team would do by adding a player like Malik Beasley. Depth and flexibility would be, out of this world for this basketball team. I mean, people will be scared to play the Knicks because we have too many ways to beat you. Even if our defense isn't that good,
I mean,
too many ways to beat you.
I agree, because one of our biggest weaknesses, especially in the playoffs before the Tibbs was forced to make the coaching the lineup change, was Josh Hart on people playing off of him.
Right.
If you got a guy like Beasley in that spot, you're not playing off of him. You're not doubling off of him. You're worried about him and him spotting up wherever he is at all times. You know what I mean? Or you're gonna pay. Right. And that's what it means. Even though he has a lot more limitations. That defined skill set would allow us to play 5 out, which a lot of fans have been screaming for, or last year. I got my preference one way or the other, but this would allow that the 5 out offense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't know if there's anything else we can say about it. You already know the depth and the flexibility this team would have would be, off the charts, in my opinion. Now, number 3 for Malik Beasley. You get a fresh start in a major market, not a major market, the most major market that you can play in, right? The most major market you can play in, and with a chance to start on a championship contender in the most major market that you can play in. It's very hard to pass that up, I think. I think it's very hard. I mean, obviously, the money that he might be able to make from Detroit or OKC or something like that might influence him to say, yeah, I need the money. But if Leon Rose and World Wide West are good at their jobs, maybe they can convince Malik Beasley that he can make up that money through marketing in New York.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Now, I know there's the argument, and I've made the argument that no longer do players view New York as a place where they can receive, endorsements. And I agree to an extent. When you're talking about players with a high, super high profile, they're going to be able to market themselves internationally anyway, no matter if they play for the Knicks, because they already have that name. But I do feel like players on the level of Malik Beasley will benefit from playing in New York or cities like New York, because they may not have the national and international acclaim. And so, it's going to be hard for them to get these national advertisements and deals. So they've got to get local deals. And if you've got to get local deals, well, where else better to get local deals than in New York? Right? What you say earlier, Tony? Getting a local deal might be
10 times the amount of a local deal in another
Detroit.
OKC, Detroit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right. And there's more ways to get, there's more avenues to get these local deals. Right. So there's more opportunity, and you're probably going to make more money per opportunity in New York. Now, can those marketing deals, endorsement deals, can they match the extra 3 point whatever million you'd make in Detroit? I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe it gets close. And maybe the taxes in New York become a deciding factor as well. You know what I mean? But I agree with you. The marketing opportunities in New York will not be the same. Even coming off of the investigation, people may be hesitant to even look at you for a deal elsewhere. In New York, you're gonna get the looks.
You're gonna get the looks.
You're gonna get the opportunities.
Yeah. Andre said social media killed the big market talks. Unless the player wants local love from the fans and local businesses. And this is where a player at the level of Malik Beasley can benefit from a place like New York, because those local endorsement deals, you're not going to, maybe LA, right? You can get those kind of local endorsement deals. Where else can you get them at the level that you can get them in New York? The local deals, so it may benefit Malik Beasley. Now, we had an idea that we were discussing earlier, right? OG signed with Skechers, right? Wouldn't it be I spoke about Latrell Sprewell earlier. Wouldn't it be very Latrell Sprewell-ish if Malik Beasley signed with Skechers and they did a very edgy commercial with Malik Beasley?
Talking about better on myself.
Bet on myself. You know what I mean? Maybe they even get some street cred. Sell some more sneakers. I mean, I love OG, but not many people are going to buy Skechers because of OG.
Shout out to OG too.
Shout out to OG. No doubt about it. But not many people are going to, I'm going to go get the OGs. I don't think so. Not Skechers. Right? Great deal. Great endorsement deal for OG, with the level of player that he is. But, if Skechers wants to really try to ground themselves, a player like Malik Beasley could give them that street edge, street credibility that they might be looking for. And for a player like Malik Beasley, given, he's most likely not going to get a Nike or Adidas deal. Something like that with Skechers might work well for him.
Especially coming off of, the previous situation.
Exactly. You never know.
Get a nice little deal.
But, the Skechers thing aside, local deals might be able to do him well. He's not going to get the same local deals in Detroit. He's not going to get him in Cleveland. He's not going to get him in OKC. LA, I don't even think is in the picture. He's not going to get him in Milwaukee. Right? Not at the level that he'll get him in New York. So I think that should be something that Leon Rose and company are saying, listen, we can help you. These guys got connections. World Wide West, Leon Rose, they got connections. You know what I mean? They got connections, to put him in front of the people that his agent, his team needs in order to make those deals go through.
And clean up some of this PR, right?
And clean up
you got to do that first. You got to, pay some of these debts that you owe.
Yeah.
Clean up those circumstances so those don't come up later. And then, bam, clean slate. Let's build.
You know what I mean? And how many chances will he have to do that in New York? Right? Donate, however many dollars to a Boys and Girls Club, per 3-pointer made. You know what I mean? Or, do something with Willis Reed School. There'll be so many opportunities. And obviously in other cities, there's opportunities as well. You know what I mean? But there may be even more in New York, probably even more in New York for him to get involved, start to change his image. And you're changing your image on the biggest platform possible. I don't know. Those things, the Knicks need his talent, and he just might need the Knicks and the platform that they can provide to change the narrative surrounding him, to receive some local endorsement deals, to possibly start and have a huge role on a championship contender. Right? When you put all of those things together, it just feels like New York is the right place for him.
You mentioned off camera the Dolan aspect of it as well, which I forget to mention that as well.
James Dolan, he likes reclamation projects, if that's what you want to say. He does not mind bringing in someone who needs to change their career or not career. I'm sorry,
Image.
image. You know, he's not afraid to do it. Now, Leon Rose and this front office have been very, very
Strategic.
particular, strategic and particular about the type of player that they bring in, right? Players that do not have drama, like Brony said earlier. You know what I mean? But this might be, you know, I think you're at a point because of the salary cap. You don't want to go over that second apron, right? I think you're at a point where you've got to take some chances. You should have the leadership in the locker room. You should have the leadership within your coach and the coaching staff. You've got to, you know, they might be at a point where you got to take some chances to get over the top. Malik Beasley might be a guy that can get you over the top just because of the depth that we mentioned earlier, the 3-point shooting, the edge that he brings to the team. You know what I mean? I think, you know, it looks nice. It could look nice. It could look very nice. You know what I'm saying? It could look very nice. I don't know. Well, in the end, Tony, do you think how do you how do you think Malik Beasley is thinking? Is he thinking, let me go someplace quiet where I can kind of get out of the spotlight, do some
I,
small things to reclaim my image?
I don't think that. I don't think there's like based off what I seen from him last year and you know what I mean over the years, his personality, nothing
Mm,
about his personality seems like I want to be quiet and you know, not hide, but you know what I mean, go somewhere low key and reclaim myself. I think he was trying to reclaim himself in Detroit, and I think he did, but he didn't do it quietly. You know what I mean? Like
okay.
he has a little bit of a flash, a little bit of a
He's got some fun.
showboat to him.
Yeah.
So I can't see him. I think if anything, he wants to reclaim his status, but he don't want to do it quietly. I think he wants to do it loud. You know what I mean? And again, what better place to do it loud and have a impact than here?
Then in New York.
You know what I mean? He could have a grudge, depending on you know what I mean how he's thinking, but he could have a grudge of a table potentially being on the table and then being taken off the table. So
Yeah.
maybe that's 6 million, 7 million. Maybe that's not enough because he knows what y'all was already offering. You know what I mean? And y'all should, you know what I mean? He might feel like, oh, y'all should have believed in me. I'm sure they had communications. I'm sure
Mhm.
they didn't just pull the offer without speaking with him or his agent
Right.
directly. You
Right.
know what I mean? So he may have a grudge as far as going back to Detroit. And again, if that's the case, what better way to stick it to Detroit? They they coming to a team that you just beat you just lost to in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
And
knowing he was an impact player in that series as well.
yeah. Um, and I could see the Knicks and Detroit meeting up again this year in the playoffs. You know, it's hard. It's hard to say. You know what I'm saying? And it may not even be his decision, right? It could be his team saying, "Hey, this is what we want you to do." Right? You know, his
As
team may
as
say,
far
"We
as New
want
York or as far as being low key.
just as far as being low key." You know what I'm saying? His team may say, "You know, we need you to be low key for a while." You know, unless his team is very confident in his character, the spotlight's already on him, and they may say, "You know what? The spotlight's on you. Let's show everyone who you really are." Go to a place like New York, you're gonna have that opportunity. You know, because
See,
you know, the spotlight's gonna be on you.
I was looking at it like his team let him down, and you know what I mean. Like if I'm him going through all the things I've gone through, and again, this is just speculation because I don't know the inner workings and how close and what they've done. But I'll be like, damn, all this stuff came out and came piled on me, and you know what I mean. I lost this deal potentially. Like it might be time to start questioning not just your own accountability and your mistakes, because I'm sure that's number one. You know what I mean? With the allegations of the the money's owed, the financial situations, like you gotta take care of that yourself,
right?
No matter what. But that could be accountants, that could be your team. You know what I mean? You could have had people trusted in that, and they dropped the ball, and now it don't matter who was responsible because it's all in your name.
It's in his name,
So
and hopefully he's, you know, just as a human being, hopefully he's learned his lesson and he's going to learn how to manage his money better. You know what I mean? Now, people in the chat are making some good points, right? Nick Yak said, he's been running through 10 million per year, right? He's going to go to anybody who can give him $7 or $8 million, like OKC or Charlotte. That's possible. Listen, if he goes to OKC for 7 to 8 million, he may be hurting himself in the long run because he may not play. They just won a championship. He may be, coming off the bench for 10 minutes a game. I think he's also going to be looking at the future and looking for a place. Okay, where can I really shine, show my talent so that I can get another big contract? That may not be OKC.
And kudos to OKC. They just won it. Salute to them. They probably been in the highest spotlight they've ever been in you know what I mean, in their existence. But their light is not like the light in New York.
Right. Now Nick Yak has another good point. 3 million with city taxes, like 2 million in a decent New York apartment and restaurants and clubs. He'll be underwater again. But what we're looking at. Yeah, that's funny.
That's fair though. It's fair.
It's fair. It's definitely fair. And maybe that's something that his team would be looking at. Like maybe New York ain't the place. Maybe there's too many things for him to get into. But he got into it in Detroit. Right. And it probably, I didn't follow everything with the investigation, but it probably followed him from other cities.
Yeah, Minnesota was the barber.
From Minnesota, so
Detroit was the apartment.
You know what I mean? So, he got into it. Small cities too, it didn't matter. I mean, you have a point. You definitely have a point. That's why we were talking about the local endorsements and things like that. To make more money. But still, you cannot discount the ability to play for a championship contender and be a key factor, a key player, possibly a starter for a championship contender, as far as setting yourself up for a bigger contract in the future. I don't think you can discount that. Now maybe he said I could do that in Cleveland too. I don't know.
The only thing that this struck me as weird about all the reports or you know what I mean, accounts of his money issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, yeah, those are high numbers, astronomical numbers. But for an NBA player to be like taking the court and things of that nature, it didn't seem like high. Like I think overall, collectively, it was like a little over 100 mil. You know what I mean? Or 100,000. Pardon me, not 100 million, 100,000. You know what I mean? Like I felt like a lot of these debts could have been paid within a couple of game checks. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing that struck me as like how it eased. You know what I mean? Like if you heard, like we've heard about people in money situations, and it's always about millions and millions of dollars. You know what I mean? So for it to be those small amounts relatively for an NBA guy, knowing what he's made over his last year, you know what I mean? Like it struck me as weird, as if you know, did somebody have some type of agenda against them? You know what I mean? Like because those seemed that like those could have been settled. I would think relatively easily. Like even if he didn't have that money, which would be bad, but I'm sure he got a friend. You know what I mean?
But you know, maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe he was just like, man, you know, that's 3,000. I can get that anytime. I could pay that anytime. Let me take care of this over here. Who knows? You know, I don't know. Size 9 said he just did that last year, playing for less than his worth. Why on earth would he do it again? He would do it again because his reputation is tarnished now. That's why he would do it again. His reputation is tarnished. You know, so now he's got to rebuild. He's got to rebuild it. You know what I mean? Got to rebuild it. So you know, and you know, you look at how late it is in free agency and all of that. You know, it's and teams aren't going to be like, even if they have the money, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to happily throw you $42 million. No, they're going to say, look at your image. You got to they're going to use that to their advantage. They're not just going to throw them the money. They're going to use that to their advantage. In my opinion, any smart GM would do that. You know what I mean? Tony, let's just say, well, actually, let me get to one more before we get there. Andre Bryant said Beasley's game would be under a microscope. Any mistake by him would be considered gambling, especially on ESPN games for the Knicks. His game would definitely be under a microscope. No matter where he goes, it's going to be under a microscope. It'd be even more under a microscope if he was in New York. That's without a doubt. And that may, you know, depending on who he is and how his team feels.
Either thrive him or break him. Make him or break him.
Make him or break him. And his team could be afraid of it. You know, because there's going to be more media. There may be more digging. Who knows? Who knows? But Tony, let's just say hypothetically the Knicks they figure out a way to sign Malik Beasley. How would he fit in the rotation?
If he's not starting, there's a lot more to figure out than if he is starting. Right? That's why I always said I wouldn't guarantee him a starting spot and use that as a some type of like incentive to sign him, but I would definitely let him know the opportunity is there for you to earn that starting spot.
Right.
For me, if he's on this team as currently constructed, you know, he helps off the bench, but then that question of that starting lineup becomes a little bit more serious. You know what I mean? Like, because if you're starting Mitchell Robinson, now you got Deuce, you got Clarkson, you got Beasley, you know what I mean? You got Hart. That's no size. And size was one of the things that we were missing last year, right? Size off the bench and just guys that weren't undersized for their position.
Right.
So I think you know, him starting does clean that up for me. So to me, if he does come here, I'm not giving him the starting spot, but I'm looking at like I hope he earns it, because who if not him, who? You know what I mean?
You know, I kind of feel like if he came to the Knicks,
it's got to be him or Deuce. Pardon me.
Yeah, if he came to the Knicks, I can't I almost can't see him not starting, to be honest with you. You know, I don't think Jordan Clarkson is a starter for this team. I think he's a great six man. Malik Beasley is a great six man too. But for this team, and I think the style of play that Mike Brown wants to play, the type of shooter that Malik Beasley is, lends himself to that starting position, I think.
Exactly. His defined skill set fits better alongside the Brunsons, the Cat, the OGs, the Towns, than it does. You know what I mean? Now, if he's in the second unit, either way, his limitations are going to be the same. But I think you don't need him to do anything more than be that volume 3-point consistent shooter in that starting unit.
That's all you know what I mean?
In the second unit, you might need more from time to time, and you may be asking him for more than his value.
Yeah, and excuse the pun this time, but you may be gambling a bit if you put him in that second lineup. You know what I mean? Keep him, keep him kind of in that box there in that starting lineup. Where he can shoot the lights out. Quiet Money said he's redundant, in my opinion. I don't think he's redundant. I know you look at him and Jordan Clarkson and say, they're the same player, but I think his shooting is better than Jordan Clarkson. His style of shooting is better than Jordan Clarkson.
I think Clarkson
for his team.
I think Clarkson does more. Like he has more to his game. Like he's probably a better ball handler. He's probably a better facilitator. You know what I mean? Like I would give them maybe on par defensively. Maybe Beasley a slight edge defensively. But yeah, I don't think they're the same. I think Clarkson can get hot and shoot the ball like Beasley. I think Beasley is going to shoot the ball that way consistently. You know what I mean? Take less bad shots. You know what I mean? Like you got to live with some things with Clarkson. He reminds me of Quickly. You know what I mean? Like, how much I loved Quickly, but you're going to have to live with some of the, heat checks and things of that nature. But he's going to give you a little bit more ball handling, a little bit more facilitating.
Yeah. And he's, like you said, Clarkson is more like a Quickly. He's more like a Dante DiVincenzo. And I think that fits in that starting lineup perfectly because he can he can shoot off. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to try to create. Clarkson is a guy that kind of needs the ball in his hands. Right? But Beasley doesn't need the ball in his hands. Not to say he can't have the ball in his hands and penetrate, but he doesn't need the ball in his hands. He can come off screens and let it go. He can shoot it quick. Right? He can help push the pace. So I think he fits it. He fits well in that starting lineup. Now, Beasley and Clarkson together off the bench. Redundant by size. I agree with that, Quiet Money. I agree with that. Them guys off the bench together. If he's if he's on the bench, then either Deuce, who is small in that lineup and not the type of a shooter that Malik Beasley is, obviously he adds defense to that lineup. Or if Josh Hart is in that lineup, everyone's going to be mad. You know what I mean? And he doesn't help spread the floor. If Mitch is in the lineup, then like Tony was saying, you got a super small lineup coming off the bench. It almost seems like he would be made to start for that position. He would be a starter.
Yeah, it's either him start or do start. I just don't think you could start Mitch. You know what I mean? If he's on this team.
Yeah.
But if Deuce starts, you know what I mean? Again, Clarkson with the ball handling and the facilitating, being able to find a guy like Beasley in the corners or whatever the case, him alongside Josh Hart. I'm not as down, you know what I mean? I'm not as down on that. But if Josh Hart is relegated, like if we're playing an all bench lineup and Josh Hart is relegated to that 4 position, and now you got Clarkson and Deuce and Beasley, I think that's just too small of a second unit. You know what I mean? And you want Yabusele now at the 5. You know what I mean? Like
You know
that's
what I'm saying?
that's
Yeah.
too small. But if Deuce is starting, I think it can still work. If Beasley's starting, I think it can still work.
Let's see what's up. Latoria B said, I cannot believe this conversation. No way he wouldn't be crucified if he was involved in a play that cost us the game in the playoffs. We cannot bring him here. No way.
I think that's a bigger conversation though,
That's a conversation,
because if
you know.
it was an investigation, no allegations, no charges, no, you know what I mean? At what point does, you know what I mean? Like how long does this stick? We already know what it cost them financially, potentially, with the contract that was off the table with Detroit and got taken off. How long does this have to be a burden that he has to carry? You know what I mean?
If Leon Rose and company did their research and they decided, you know what, there's nothing there, we feel comfortable in signing him. You know, then as far as fans, I think that hopefully, you know, that we trust in the front office. Obviously, everyone's not going to be as in, you know all the details. And some people are just general fans, you know what I mean? So they won't understand how much background work Leon Rose and the company put into signing Malik Beasley if that were to happen. So I get your point there, you know, but if they did the research, they did the background research and figured, you know what, we can sign him. You know, we feel comfortable in signing him. Then, you know, I'd feel comfortable. You know, and if he missed the last shot, made a mistake, I mean, okay, he just missed the last shot or made a mistake. You muted.
I was saying, especially given the fact that this regime has been very selective in who they bring in, you know, as far as like high character guys and things of that nature. So yeah, you kind of gotta trust their work, right? Trust their history. That if they did the background on him and they feel like he's cleared,
Yeah.
just like if he was cleared and they decided not to be interested, I would take their judgment on that too, as much as however I feel about if he's worth it. You know what I mean? Because maybe they found something out that, you know what I mean? So
they're not comfortable with. You know what I mean? No doubt about it. Yeah. For those just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, we had 6 reasons that Malik Beasley and the New York Knicks could be a perfect match. For the Knicks, number 1 was elite shooting that Malik Beasley would bring to the team. 41% shooter from the 3-point line, you know, on like 9 shot attempts per game, 16.8 points per game. Number 2, he'd be a affordable and affordable high impact talent, right? You know, you'd be getting them at the veterans minimum. The Knicks want to add high impact players that can change the game for you. He would be one of those guys at a very, very affordable price. And then number 3 for the New York Knicks, depth and flexibility. He would add tremendously to the depth of this basketball team. And you'd have so many different lineups you can throw out there on the floor. You can throw big lineups, small lineups, mid-size lineups. You can fast break lineups. You can slow it down. So many things that you'd be able to do with the depth of this basketball team. The depth is already picked up. Now the depth would be crazy if you were able to add Malik Beasley. And again, Tom Thibodeau would be writing letters to Leon Rose. Mad letters. Like, you son of a da-da-da-da-da, you didn't give me these players. For Malik Beasley, though, he'd get a chance to play for a championship contender, which he can do with other teams, Cleveland, OKC, etc., who all will be interested in Malik Beasley, but he'd get a chance to play for a championship contender for the New York Knicks, you know, and possibly start for the New York Knicks. There's other teams he may not start. You know what I mean? Which would give him an opportunity to shine as a specialist because he would pretty much have a defined role with the New York Knicks in that starting lineup if he was a starter. He'd have a defined role. You know what I mean? And he can shine in New York. And I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, the major markets don't mean anything. But for a guy like Malik Beasley, I think it would. He'd get a fresh start in a major market, which he'd get a lower deal from the Knicks, a veterans minimum. But with all of the local endorsements that he'd be able to get, he may make up that money and have the opportunity to change his image on the biggest stage possible. That's what we're talking about as far as the major market, being able to change his image on the biggest stage possible. Does he want that kind of smoke? We don't know. Maybe he wants to fade away out west in OKC and where the spotlight isn't on him. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll see how that ends up and where it goes. You know what I mean? Tony, you look like you were about to add something.
Nah, you touched on it. I was just gonna say the spotlight of being in New York alone. You know what I mean? Like you'll be able to rebuild your image a lot faster, a lot brighter. You know what I mean? Like if you do it right, you know what I mean. The lights are brighter here.
Right.
It's more attention here.
The only thing is his team has to feel comfortable that he can do it under the brightest lights. You know what I mean? And that's definitely a tall order. Because doing it in New York where there's so many distractions, you know, I guess one of my questions is, do they feel comfortable? You know what I mean? Do they feel comfortable having him reclaim his career, change his image in New York? That's that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Last question before we get out of here. Who would you rather, Ben Simmons or Malik Beasley?
Ben Simmons, man. I think he checks more boxes. I think Beasley checks one box, one definitive elite skill set. I think Ben Simmons checks 3 of those.
You know, the more that I talk about Malik Beasley, I don't want to say my mind changes, but the more I get comfortable with Malik Beasley on this basketball team. I still do feel like Ben Simmons checks a lot of boxes that this team needs as far as a little bit more size, length, the defense, the ability to facilitate. I think he can help to unlock players like Bridges and OG, you know, as far as getting them the basketball, even getting Towns the basketball. I can envision a pick and roll with Simmons and Towns. You know, there's a lot of things that I can envision with Ben Simmons out there on the floor. It's a tough one. I still do think that Ben Simmons checks more boxes, you know, but you know, the more I think about what we could do with Malik Beasley out there on the floor offensively, you know, makes me feel like you know, maybe that's the guy you should take.
Here's what I'll say though. Like my shout out to DJ Shuttle, you know what I mean? When all this started transpiring, I text him, I'm like, Beasley over Shamet, you know what I mean? Like, because that's Ben Simmons is my first choice right now because I just think he checks too many boxes. But I would definitely go Beasley over Shamet because I think Beasley is what we expected from Shamet last year. You know what I mean? And granted, I know what Shamet went through working his way back and all that, but I saw what Beasley did throughout the year. You know what I mean? And it's undeniable. And that's what I thought we had in Shamet. Now, when we talk about Ben Simmons, he's not giving you that at all, but he checks other boxes.
Right. Yeah. I'm definitely, I mean, it's without a doubt, I'm definitely taking Malik Beasley over Landry Shamet. This, I mean, that's not even a question in my mind. It's not even, that's not even close to me. Between, Ben Simmons and Malik Beasley, they bring something, they each bring something very different to this basketball team. And it's still something that they both bring things the Knicks need.
Even with the issue of me saying like, all right, we got to start Beasley if he's here, or Deuce, but we can't start Mitch. Like, I think there's more options bringing Ben Simmons in, as far as he could start, he could not. You know what I mean? Like, we have more different people we could put around him, and it fits than with Beasley, considering the lack of size all around the team. You know what I mean? That size box pause that Ben Simmons checks, you know what I mean, at 6'10", like he could play the lead guard role, but not be the lead guard. You know what I mean? Like he could be the point forward. You know what I mean? Like he could be the small ball center and actually be the lead ball handler. Like those things you can't. You know what I mean? Like those are boxes you're not going to get checked anywhere else.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, man. We still have some time before training camp is here. We had about a month before training camp gets running. And, Leon Rose and company, they want to have the roster ready to go before training camp. So you would expect something's going to happen soon. Right? They're going to figure, I'm sure they're negotiating with, or should I not say negotiating, but continuing to keep tabs with all of the teams of, Ben Simmons, Malik Beasley, even Landry Shamet, maybe even Russell Westbrook. I seen someone said Russell's the guy.
I was gonna ask you about him later.
I'm sure we'll find out soon. Within the next couple of weeks, I'm sure we'll find out, and we'll get this roster finalized and be ready to move into the season. And I've already been in contact with the New York Knicks about tickets for game 1, which is going to be on ESPN. So, they're going to be outrageous. But, we'll see what we're going to do about getting some group tickets out there again this year. Get that whole train rolling. You know what I mean? Anything else, Tony, before we head over to your channel?
Nah, man. This is a good show, man. We I think we covered a lot of the Beasley things that I don't think I've seen throughout the Knicks atmosphere. So yeah, I think we locked this one up.
I hope so, man. Let's I just want the Knicks to go ahead and finalize, get the roster finalized. You know what I mean? And so we can start totally, just breaking down the final roster. You know what I mean? And figuring out how we're going to win the championship. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to head over to Tony's channel. You want to let him know the topic, Tony?
Just what we could look forward to, this coming season with Mike Brown, with the new additions, and maybe what holes we have right now, without these last 2 roster spots filled in. What holes do you think we have on this roster that may be the most important to fill? I'm talking about checking boxes with Ben Simmons, and we talk about what Beasley could bring, but that just made me think about what are the holes on this team as currently constructed. So
yeah, okay, all right.
Just a quick 20-minute conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're gonna head on over to Knicks and Bruises, ladies and gentlemen. Nick Yak. I'm about to put the link in the chat, which I just did, so you can head on over to Knicks and Bruises. We're gonna talk some more Knicks. what kind of changes, what holes do we need to fill? All right, so make sure you join us over there, and it's almost go time, so it's time for us to get back in effect, Tony. It's time for us to get back in the saddle. You know what I mean? Off topic, but I'm feeling good about the New York Giants.
Oh man, Jackson Dart,
good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you see what we did to the Patriots, 42-10. I know it's preseason. You know what I mean? But I'm feeling really, really confident about the New York Giants this year. I'm feeling really, really good. You know what I mean? We got some strong rookies out there. We got. Malik Neighbors is going to be ending. He might be a top 5 receiver in the league now. You know what I mean? Like, we got some things happening with the New York Giants. I feel really, really good about the Giants. Very, very happy. So I can't wait to see. Can't wait to get the season going there too.
Yeah, shout out to Die Hard Giants.
No doubt, Die Hard Giants. Size 9 said the Bills are no bumps. No, the Bills are good, and he was handling them. Yes, I was at that game. You know what I'm saying? I was at that game, first preseason game, and he was doing his thing. Jackson Dart was doing his thing out there against a strong Bills defense.
It's a fact.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm excited about this season, and Russ better not mess up. As soon as he messes up, people are going to be calling for Jackson Dart.
People already calling. They already calling for it.
Already calling for, I'm telling you, you know what I'm saying? So, I'm loving what I'm seeing with the Giants this year. I feel really good. Now, the NFC East is tough, right? The Commanders, they got a team. They was in the NFC East Championship last year. Obviously, the Eagles won it. Dallas is always supposed to be good. You know what I mean? They're always supposed to be good. But who knows? But anyway, what?
11 or 12 losses?
Losses in a row? 11 or 12 losses? Come on, man. Stop playing with us. What are you talking about? Man, the Cowboys, man. I want to hear about the Cowboys. The Knicks fan and the Cowboys fan. What are we talking about?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what size 9 is talking about. It's not enough, folks. What you mean?
Just
I said I was at the Buffalo Giants game.
Just saluting the Giants.
I hope so. I hope that's what he meant. I don't know. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here. We'll catch you next time. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Giants. We out. Peace.
This is NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock. Who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place to tune in. Tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Nick.